Alrighty, so yesterday morning, I didn't think that this person that I was going to Flagstaff with was going to actually call me back because we've tried to plan out doing things for the past 5 years. And every time that we planned on doing something, there was always an excuse for why she couldn't go. Every single time for 5 years. So I ended up drinking as much as I normally do. And at 7 o'clock in the morning, my phone rang and it's like, "Are you ready to leave?" And I was still turning in my bed thinking to myself, this is really happening. I'm actually going to have to drive my car further than I've ever driven my car in my entire life. And I asked her to drive because I was way too hungover to drive, and she said no. So I had to get into the driver's seat of my own car and point it north. And it was incredible. I've never seen snow in real life. I was told in one of my videos that last year at the same time, Flagstaff had 3 feet of snow on the ground. There were little tiny patches in the mountains of ice on the ground, which I have never squished with my feet before, and I thought it was pretty cool. So, yesterday was the first adventure like or vacation like thing that I've done in over 20 years. I haven't seen Flagstaff or northern Arizona since I was in kindergarten. I've never actually seen snow in itself. Even if it wasn't snowing, I've never seen powder on the ground before. I've lived in the desert my whole life. Again, very strange day for me. It's a day I'll never forget, and I took hundreds, if not thousands, of pictures. But with that said, I wanted to talk to you guys about this the sad truth about work. The sad truth about work is that I have gotten so accustomed to doing the same thing every day that going somewhere and doing something was so odd to me. I don't think I've been away from the computer for that long in my. I can't even remember when I hadn't just sat down at a computer and worked at the computer. And it took me about 4 hours to realize that I hadn't looked at a computer screen. We got up to Flagstaff at about 10 o'clock in the morning. It was about 180 miles north, and going up to Flagstaff in that my little Promobile was really strange. And then suddenly you're in flat ground, and then there's trees, and then there's just forest. Again, I've never really left the desert, so seeing that in real life was something that I didn't understand. It took me a while to come to the conclusion that even though we were just leaving Tempe to go to Flagstaff, the people in Flagstaff are really nice. We went to the REI store, and everyone that came up to us inside that REI store was genuinely good. Like they were so nice. Seeing people in winter clothing was something I can't remember seeing here in the valley. I go to work in shorts and a t-shirt every day, regardless of what the temperature is. I mean, I think it's 38 degrees the other day, and as I tell my boss, it's like, what's the point of wearing winter clothes when I'm hopping into my Promobile, which is 80 degrees, and then I hop out of my Promobile and then I climb into the office, and the office is 85 degrees. It's not really cold. I mean, there's little tiny patches of cold, but Flagstaff was cold. Like I ended up wearing compression fit pants to go hiking because I didn't think we were going to go into the city, which was really embarrassing. But yeah, I'm lucky I wore a long jacket because it covered up my junk and yoga pants basically. Anyhow, I'm still reeling. We got home last night at around 8:30. Traffic was a pain. Coming back, traffic going up wasn't bad. Traffic coming down on the I-17, we were in stop and go traffic for at least an hour because there were so many car accidents. All right, let's get into today's video. I probably took down what you guys were looking at a while ago. But I did a video on the transcript from this particular video, and I I wasn't sure what I was going to do a video on. I'm still kind of loopy from the elevation changes. Like my ears pop both ways so many times that I'd never experienced that. My ears don't pop on a regular day, right? I mean, I live in the desert. It's flat. There are no elevation changes on the streets. Flagstaff is up, down, side to side. It was like a going to another planet. But without further ado, let's get into talking point number one. If you're producing more with less effort, why hasn't that translated into more leisure time for workers? The simple truth is that with workers being more productive, this means that corporations can increase production with less workers. As workers become more productive, the amount of work that they can produce, basically making them richer because they get to cut down on things like benefits, wages, and any sort of program that benefits workers, and you reap the rewards of a higher production while the worker is working harder, busting his hump, and his paycheck is being diminished every single day by the fact that the dollar, the buying power of their paycheck has diminished incredibly to the point where the average person can't afford to buy anything. The average worker is living in substandard housing, driving a Promobile, has no savings, has no future. And instead of thinking about those things, the proles think about things like the lottery or that things will just get better. I don't know how the proletariat convinces itself that things will get better, but I think a lot of it has to do with just looking around. I mean, we base a lot of what we do simply by looking around at other proles. Unfortunately, when we look around, we usually turn to social media, which gives us a unrealistic expectation of what our lives are going to look like. So the proletariat will look and be like, "Oh, you know what? Things are going to get better because I'm looking at the social influencer who's living in a mansion on the beach, and you expect to get there somehow through hard work and and just pure work, right? You are going to work in order to get to that level because you've been convinced. I wouldn't even say convinced. You've been conditioned throughout your entire life to believe that immense effort equals immense rewards, where the reality of that is not true. I've worked my entire life and I own nothing and I'm miserable. And because we're worth nothing, we're not paid anything. And that cycle will continue forever. As long as rich people know that they can get higher productivity from workers just by dangling a carrot in front of them, in front of their workers, the workers will continue to do that because there is no other option. There's no plan B in order to reach a level of financial success that we've all been promised, right? We all want a house. We all want a hot wife. We all want a fancy car. We all want to be comfortable. And the way to that comfort is not, and I repeat, is not through hourly work. Hourly work is the product of the devil. Think of hourly work as a plantation. You're on that plantation and you bust your hump every day. Every day you come to work and you give it your all and you're running in place. Because a plantation was never designed to give the average worker the ability to become their own plantation owner. The plantation is just there to provide basic food and shelter. Just enough so that you don't succumb to the elements or fall down from hunger. But most of us are always hungry because we don't make enough money from the alleged wages that we get paid to be able to take care of ourselves. We're living as plantation workers in an economy that has convinced us that hard work leads to somewhere good, which I assure you, it does not. Talking point number two. Over the last 40 years, the richest individuals have compared nearly all the value of productivity gains. Oops, compared. No, it says captured. Oh my gosh, I went to bed really late last night, guys. So let me reread this. Over the last 40 years, the richest individuals have captured nearly all the value of productivity gains. This means that the harder the proletariat works, the only people benefiting from that labor are the rich. The richest individuals on planet Earth gain from you coming to work believing that somehow through your labor and your dreams and you're having this ridiculously stupid idea that somehow you are going to get rich by working. I've said this in almost all my videos. You are never going to get rich by working in retail, warehouse, or food. They're not designed that way. All those jobs do is give you enough resources in order for you to come back the next day. They are not jobs that are designed to enrich you. In fact, these are jobs that are designed for you to go into debt. That's why I make videos where I talk about you can't afford to work anymore. It's not nobody wants to work anymore. It's you can't afford to work anymore. Just look at these two numbers, and this should tell you the entire story. The average person making minimum wage right now is making less than $30,000 a year. If you're a minimum wage worker right now, you're making $14.70 an hour times however many hours you get. If you're this person that I went to Flagstaff with, you're getting an average of 20 to 30 hours per week, and that varies incredibly. So, on an average week, she's pulling down about $300. That's not enough to live off. No matter where you live in the United States, living off $300 a week while paying between $1,000 and $2,000 a month for basic housing, it's not enough. The only reason she's able to stay alive is because she's a girl. And girls have a much easier time when it comes to making money from men online. So she is capable of being on the internet and gaining enough resources just from that in order to fill in the gaps of how much money she needs. Aside from that, if she was a 35-year-old middle aged fat man working in a Kroger's as a cashier with no possibility of promotion, this is the person that would have been homeless a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and would have stayed homeless. And she's aware of that. We spent hours talking about the fact that she's a privileged person because of the way that she looks, because of the way that society babies her. All of these girls on OnlyFans and YouTube and Twitch that come out here and, I don't know what they do. They they just look at the camera and men just melt, especially the men that don't have any chance with these women. I mean, you've all said how Shoe on Head is extremely popular on the internet. But if Shoe on Head came out here on camera and was 300 pounds, had 5 kids, and was a person of color, she would have no value. But because of the simple reason that she looks that way, she's able to retain an audience of millions of people. That's not by coincidence. It's just those are the lucky tokens that you get in life. If you're like me, you didn't get any lucky tokens. You're not attractive. You're not rich. You don't have access to good paying jobs. You have access to the lowest form of employment on the planet. And you can choose to hate your circumstances like I do. There hasn't been a single day that I've woken up and been like, oh, wow, I get to go back to work for a paycheck that's not going to provide enough resources in order for me to stay alive. But that's just the way it is. We can't just lay down and say, I don't want this life. I'd rather just lay here on the floor face down and wait for life to take me because it's not worth it. What do I get out of working? Absolutely nothing. Most of the proletariat men are not getting any paint taco. We're working longer hours. We're working harder. And at the end of the day, we come home only to shake hands with the governor and to drink some Pearl beer and then pretend that life doesn't hurt. I assure you, life hurts. Life hurts back there. Back there where you don't want life hurting you, that's where it comes in. And it is very girthy. And you don't want life hurting you back there, but it comes in there anyway. And it stretches it out to the point where you think it's just going to rip open, and that's life. It ends, you wake up again, and there it is, back in there. And what are you supposed to do? I don't like that. I don't like the way that life treats me. I don't want to be, I don't want to wake up like this every single day and feel like, oh my God, this is it. I've got to drop my tidy whities, spread my ankles, and just accept that life is always going to be hurting me. And there's nothing I can do to stop it. That's the way that life is. And personally, if there was an exit out, exit. Yeah, exit only, fleece. All right, let's transition to talking point number 3 because we're running out of time. If so much of our work feels meaningless, shouldn't we rethink how society values time and labor? It's not society who values time and labor. Time and labor is a statistic. It's on a spreadsheet at every single evil corp in America. Time and labor of the proletariat only means money. When rich people think of time and labor, they don't think about their own time and labor. Rich people don't really work. They sit there and manipulate the levers of society, pulling and pushing and pulling until they get the maximum amount of labor that they can possibly get out of the proletariat. What that does to the proletariat is it empties them out of their life force. The more they push those levers, the more that they treat the proletariat as a conveyor belt of time and labor, right? You bring in the proletariat, it works a certain amount of time, and then you throw it off of the conveyor belt into the trash, and then you bring in more. The turnover rate at my current job is 150%. Do you think that you're getting anything other than just pure, unadulterated labor from that workforce? There's no investment, no loyalty, no like for the corporation on the part of the proletariat because you're using them as time and labor. You're offering the lowest amount of work engagement, no benefits, and the treatment of a farm animal. That's what you offer the proletariat. Their time and labor and their suffering means absolutely nothing to a person that's being enriched by their labor. In fact, most rich people would like to see every American turned into prison labor. If being poor could be turned into a crime so that they wouldn't have to pay you the minimum wage, they would do it in a heartbeat. And I think we are moving closer and closer to a society where the lower class is treated as prison labor. Because what value do you have to society if you're working inside of a Target or a Starbucks or you're washing cars? You have no value. And our society is very cruel when it comes to the value of certain people. Are you attractive? Are you wealthy? Are you a person that can be exploited for getting it on? Or are you a person that can be exploited in order to get other things? Remember, ass, gas, or cash. That's the way that corporate America works with its workers. And most employees are not worth anything. Therefore, the investment is never going to come. So they're just going to use you for what they can possibly get. So if they think that they can get this amount of time and labor out of you, they're going to take it. Once you're not useful, you're going to be tossed out. And that's unfortunate, but that's the way of the world. All right, my final talking point. Instead of creating pointless jobs to maintain the status quo, society could focus on reducing work hours, increasing wages, and prioritizing well being over relentless productivity. Remember, guys, I'm a strong advocate of the 1 day, 1 hour work week. The rest of that time that we spend at work is all theater. I pretend to work, you pretend to pay me, and that is the consensus. That is what we've come to. This is all work means to us. We pretend to work. That productivity that seems to show up on all these charts, it's a figment of their imagination. Most people will only do enough work so that they can keep their jobs. No one's coming out here and working like the owner. No one's coming out here and having any amount of loyalty towards Evil Corp. No one is engaged at work. In fact, I can see the disengagement in work. People show up, that's all it is. In some instances, all people do is show up, and that's enough. I know that's what I do. You just show up, you look around, you sit there, you get a cup of coffee, you look at the clock. Every chance you get, you go out and you take a break. As long as there isn't someone whipping you to get more productivity out of you, you're going to do the least amount of work humanly possible. And that's just the nature of the proletariat. Most people don't want to work while they're at work because work sucks. Let's face it. Working sucks. And what you get out of working isn't worth it. And at the end of the day, you would rather somehow come home with a little piece of your soul still in place. Corporate America is soul crushing. But if you can protect half of your soul or a quarter of your soul from having the corporation crush it, you're going to do it every single day. You want to come home and still be able to have some sort of normal life, which the corporation doesn't want you to have. The corporation wants you to come home and be scared that you're going to lose your job or be scared that you're not making enough money in order to feed and house yourself. It always wants you to be on edge. That's why we don't have any job security, because the corporation relies on the entire proletariat to live in fear in order to continue the machine turning as it wants to turn.